Hi, Greyhounds. So, we're starting a new book today, Saving Winslow. This is a Young Hoosier chapter book nominee for Book of the Year. I hope you love it. It's written by Sharon Creech, who wrote Love That Dog and also Hate That Cat. And it's the story of Louie, who has a chance to try to save this little baby donkey, and everyone thinks the baby donkey's gonna die. Its mother is sick and can't take care of it, and he says, he thinks he can save it. It's also about a story about his brother who is away and serving in the army. So Louis all by himself and wants to do something so wonderful, like he feels like his brother is doing, serving in the military. So without further ado, Saving Winslow. We're going to read chapters 1 through 9 today. We have short chapters. So here we go. Chapter 1 is called, What Is It? In the laundry basket on the kitchen floor was a lump. Another dead thing? Louis asked. Not yet, his father said. It was the midst of winter, when night, like an unwelcome guest, came too early and stayed too long, and when each day seemed smaller than the one before. Louis's mother stared down at the basket that her husband had brought into the house. Another one of Uncle Pete's, I presume? Uncle Pete had a small farm on the outskirts of town. Anything to do with Uncle Pete usually involved Louis's father wasting time or money, or doing something dangerous, like chopping down trees or racing tractors through mud fields, or disposing of dead animals. Louis's father had already brought home and buried 2 piglets that had not survived their birth. Louis knelt beside the basket. A small gray head with black eyes and feathery eyelashes and sticking up ears emerged. Attached to the head was a trembling, thin body and 4 long, spindly legs, all of it covered in splotchy gray fur scattered with brown freckles. It was not a dog or a cat. It was a pitiful-looking thing, and it was gazing at Louis. He felt a sudden rush, as if the roof had peeled off the house and the sun had dived into every corner of the kitchen. A goat? He asked, kneeling beside the basket. No, a donkey, his father said, a mini donkey born last night. Oh, I don't know what a miniature donkey is, but it sure does sound cute. A mini donkey? Louis's hand cupped the donkey's head, patted it gently. The donkey seemed too weak to move. Something wrong with it? The mother is sick, can't take care of it. Poor mama, Louis said. Poor baby. What will happen to it? Probably go downhill fast. Might last a day or 2. No! So his mother said, Why do you have the donkey? Why'd you bring it home if it might just die in a day or 2? I don't know, his father said. I felt sorry for it. I thought maybe we could at least watch it until it, until it dies. He whispered that last word. The donkey made a small noise that sounded like, please. Louis lifted the donkey from the basket and held it close. It smelled of wet hay. It put its face against Louis's neck and made that noise again. Please. Okay, Louis said, I accept the mission. What mission? To save this pitiful, motherless donkey. Chapter 2. Something different approaching. Louis's house was old and cold and drafty and leaky, rising up out of its stone cellar with good intention, but weakening as it reached the bowed roof, topping the musty attic. The house was like many others on the narrow roads this side of town. It smelled of wet hay. It put its face against Louis's neck and made that noise again. Okay, Louis said, I accept the mission. I realize I just read that before. I had a little interruption, if you'll forgive me. All right, something different approaching. Louis's house was old and cold and drafty and leaky, rising up out of its stone cellar with good intention, but weakening as it reached the bowed roof, topping the musty attic. The house was like many others on the narrow roads this side of town. Beyond the town stretched farmland and empty fields. In summers past, the house had felt light and airy, with cooling breezes puffing the curtains in and out of the windows, and always his older brother, Gus, there, so full of energy and purpose. Come on, Louis, let's paint the porch. And Come on, Louie, let's clean out that vegetable patch. And come on, Louie, let's go to the creek. Always was something new to do. But now Gus was in the army, gone already a year. And now it was winter, and each day short and dark and cold, until the snowy Saturday morning in January, with the wind plastering the windows with wet flakes, when Louis had awakened feeling floaty, suspended in the air, with something different approaching. So it's a cold time of year, just like around here. Something different might be Winslow. Oh, and he doesn't even know what its name is right now. Just know that it's a day old. Chapter 3. Don't let it hear you. Louis had not had the best luck nurturing small creatures. Those worms he brought into the house when he was 3 years old, those cute, wriggling things dried up and died 2 days later. The lightning bugs, so carefully caught and tipped into the glass jar with holes punched in the lid, dead on the bottom of the jar 3 days later. The lively goldfish won at the carnival, belly up at the end of the week. Blue parakeet also won at the carnival, carefully fed and watered and talked to, 3 months, then gasped its last breath at the bottom of its cage. The kitten found at the side of the road ran away the second day. The bird limping across the porch and gently brought indoors, it flew out an open window 2 days later. Hamster, snake, turtle, lizard, Louis tried, but all of them, each and every one, either shriveled and died or escaped. How sad. More recently, he had been longing for a dog. His parents thought it'd be a better idea if he borrowed a dog from time to time, one that didn't live with them, one that didn't need walking in the rain and snow, and one that didn't pee on the carpet or chew on the furniture. So Louis was more than a little surprised when his father came home that Saturday morning with a pitiful donkey wrapped in a blue blanket. I don't want to watch it die, his mother said. No, Louis said, no dying. I told you, I accept the mission. The pitiful creature tentatively touched its nose to Louis's. Aw. Don't get attached, his mother warned. You're going to be heartbroken when it. Shh, Louis said. Don't let it hear you. He asked his father if it was a boy or a girl. Boy, he said. Poor thing. His parents stepped out onto the front porch to discuss the situation. Louis could see his mother waving her arms here and there, and his father nodding helplessly, shrugging his shoulders, as if he realized he had not thought this through. And then Louis saw him waving his arms and smiling and making a cute donkey face. The pitiful donkey was trembling in Louis's arms, his wee head nuzzling Louis's neck, his long, spindly legs folded up awkwardly. By the time his parents came inside, Louis had a plan. He'll stay in the cellar. I can sleep there with him on the cot. Maybe we could have the heater on at night. We need to go to the feed store and get some hay for him to sleep on and a bottle and some milk formula. His mother's mouth opened and shut. No sounds came out. Mom, will you watch him while Dad and I get supplies? Louis handed the donkey to her, pushing him gently into her reluctant arms. Louis's mother bent her head to the donkey, studying his sweet face. Go on, she said, but I'm warning you both, he may not last the night. And if he does, he may not last another day or two. You're going to be so sad. No, Louis said, I will save Winslow. Winslow? Mom said. That's his name, Winslow. It just came to me out of the air. Do you think he should try, even though the odds are against him? Would you try? I don't know. I think it'd be hard not to try, wouldn't it? Oh, sweet little Winslow. Now we have chapter 4 called Think Positive. Next door lived Louis's friend Mack, whose father owned the feed store. Louis had been in the feed store many times helping Mack stock shelves, so he was familiar with the layout. He could direct customers to the cow halters, the livestock feed bins, the portable cages, and tick repellent and vitamin supplements for animals of all types, and to books on every farm animal from pigs to donkeys. Mack was there when Louis and his father arrived. They told him about the donkey and chose a suitable powdered milk formula. A small bag, Louis's father said, because it probably won't live very. Yes, it will, Louis said. Don't say that. Mack recommended a book all about donkeys. But Louis's father said they should get it from the library because, what will we need it for if it... Don't say it! Think positive. That was pretty much how it was, with a few items his father accepted. The smallest bottle, the smallest bag of formula, the tiniest vial of vitamins, a 2-page free pamphlet entitled The Newborn Donkey, instead of the 200-page book all about donkeys, because he was convinced this would all be wasted on the pitiful donkey. His father did not want to buy a bale of hay for bedding, but Mack's dad offered to throw in a partial bale for free because it had fallen off someone's truck. "We're going to feel pretty stupid," his father said, "if we get home and find a dead donkey." "Quit saying that. I just don't want you to get your hopes up." Oh my goodness, his father is so worried that Louis is going to be so devastated if he dies. Chapter 5, Mack and the Sisters. Mack was 13, 3 years older than Louis. People sometimes thought they were related because they were often together and both had dark, unruly hair and dark eyes and were tall and thin. Louis's own brother Gus shared Louis's dark features, but had their father's strong, stocky build. He had played football in high school and had been eager to join the army. Louis missed him. He sometimes missed Mack too, because lately Mack had been hanging out with his friends from school when he wasn't helping at the feed store. If Louis suggested sledding down the hill at the end of the road, Mack sometimes said, "Oh, I'm a teenager now. I don't feel like sledding." But other times, if there was no one else around, he might join Louis and laugh his head off all the way down the hill. It was while they were sledding that they had met the sisters Claudine and Nora, who had recently moved to town and were the only other ones at the hill that day. It was late Sunday afternoon and the snow was packed and icy in spots. Later, Louis couldn't remember how it was that he and Mack learned their names and where they lived, and that Claudine was Mack's age and Nora was a year younger than Louis. It was all a blur, the way Mack and Claudine started talking and laughing while Nora and Louis kept on sledding down the hill, walking back up and sledding down again. On the way home, just the two of them, Louis and Mack, Mack put his hand over his heart and said, "I'm in love." He pretended to stagger and fall back in the snow. Oh my goodness, 13 years old. That's funny stuff. Whew. Okay, chapter 6, called Donkey, Donkey, It's Okay. When Louis and his father returned from the feed store, his mother was still cuddling the donkey, snuggling him in a blanket, stroking his head, and talking to him. "Donkey, donkey, it's okay." Louis set up a place for Winslow in the cellar, with hay for bedding and blankets for extra warmth. Winslow was bleeding pitifully. Those little please. Winslow did not know what to do with a bottle of milk. He repeatedly bumped his nose against the nipple, and when he got it in his mouth, he spit it out. When it finally stayed in his mouth, he didn't know how to suck on it. Louis stayed with Winslow, holding him, talking with him, petting him, coaxing him to drink. He dipped milk onto his finger and slipped his finger into Winslow's mouth. Winslow sucked on it eagerly. Louis repeated that until Winslow accepted the bottle. That's so sweet, and he's so patient, don't you think? Louis is. Success! But it had taken 2 hours to coax an ounce of milk into Winslow, and then Winslow fell asleep. Louis, too, fell asleep, holding the blanket-wrapped, pitiful Winslow. When Louis was born, he was 2 months early and weighed only 3 pounds. He didn't like to see photos of himself from when he was such a scrawny bird-like thing, hooked up to tubes and housed in an incubator. He looked helpless. Sometimes Louis thought he could remember those early days. He knew that was unlikely, but often when he was falling asleep or waking up, he felt as if he'd been gasping for breath, and then suddenly his mouth opened wide and a rush of cool, clean air came in, and he expanded like a balloon, and he floated up and out of an incubator and into the world. And such a world it was, full of blue sky and trees heavy with leaves, every shade of green, and birds swooping and diving and chirping and yellow tulips waving. Louis was thinking about this when he fell asleep holding the pitiful donkey, and when he awoke a few hours later, he felt that rush of cool, clean air. But something was different. He did not feel floaty. There was the donkey limp against his chest. Louis rubbed him with the blanket, begging Winslow to stay alive. Please, please, please. Winslow's legs twitched. His eyes opened briefly and then closed again. Louis urged the donkey to take more milk. Please, Winslow, please. And he wondered, had his parents begged him to stay alive? Did they hover over him like he was hovering over Winslow? Did they urge him to keep breathing? Did they pat him and talk to him? And did that help him? In 2 weeks, winter break would be over and Louis would have to return to school. He hadn't thought about what he would do with Winslow when that time came. How would he get frequent feedings? His mother said, "Oh, don't worry about that. We don't even know if Winslow will be—" Don't say it. I can understand how Louis gets upset, don't you? He doesn't want to hear them say, when he dies. Oh my goodness. It's so heart-wrenching, I think. Okay, chapter 7, Avoid the Ball. Louis missed his brother, Gus, and wished he had not joined the army, even though it was what Gus had most wanted to do, and everyone was so proud of him. "You'll be serving our country," Louis's father had said. Louis hoped he could serve his country too, and he sometimes imagined himself standing on a hilltop guarding the territory. Sometimes his arms were spread wide as if to shield everyone behind him. Was that serving? Gus's favorite sports were basketball, baseball, soccer, and football, and although Gus had tried to interest Louis in these games, Louis gradually understood he did not have Gus's natural talent. He was particularly wary of sports that involved balls. When he tried to throw, kick, dribble, or bat them, they rarely went where he intended. When someone else threw, kicked, dribbled, or batted a ball, Louis was unable to anticipate where it was aimed. After one especially frustrating soccer practice, Louis's coach said, not unkindly, "Louis, you seem to avoid the ball." I was kind of the same way. Anyone else the same way? "Right," Louis said. "When it's coming at me, I don't know where to move. I can't get out of the way." I understand that. "You were not supposed to get out of the way." "Yes, I am." Maybe sports are not your thing, Louis." Later that night, he asked Gus, "But what is my thing? If it's not sports, then what?" "Don't worry, Louis. You have plenty of time to figure that out." But Louis did worry. He feared he would never find something he was as good at or something he was as passionate about as Gus was about sports. I hope he finds out somewhere in this book what he's good at. Think he will? I think so. I hope so. Chapter 8, Gus. After his brother left for the army, Louis wondered how the absence of one person could take so much air out of the house. He kept bumping into empty pockets, spaces that Gus had previously inhabited. The couch with cushions squished, the kitchen counter always dotted with his sandwich makings, bread and mayonnaise and mustard and bologna and peanut butter. The bed across from his, the porch, cluttered with Gus's smelly shoes and sweatshirts. All these places were now missing signs of Gus. He and his parents hovered over each letter and postcard from Gus. They were hungry for his voice and his news, but he rarely phoned, didn't write often, and his news was not elaborate. Life was okay or not too bad. Once he said it was great, but he did not explain why it was great. The food was okay or not too bad. The one time he and his buddies had pizza, it was great. Not the biggest vocabulary, Louis's father observed. At first, Gus had signed his letters simply Gus, and then it was "Miss you, Gus." But lately, each letter closed with the same 3 words. "Remember me, Gus." Of course they'd remember him, Louis always thought when he saw that signature. What a crazy thing to say. But it made him worry about Gus, and now when Louis was holding Winslow, coaxing him to drink, wishing him stronger, he hoped that if Gus were sick or injured, someone would watch over him. I can imagine. And so maybe he remembers what it feels like when he was a baby and he only weighed 3 pounds. And someone took care of him and they made sure he survived. Last chapter for the day, chapter 9, What's the Point? One morning, Louis's mother, standing at the top of the cellar stairs, announced visitors. "Hey, Louis, we've come to see the sickly donkey." It was Mack clomping down the stairs, followed by Claudine and Nora. Claudine rushed to Winslow. "Aw." Nora stood a few steps back, staring at Winslow. "May I touch it?" Claudine asked. "I could die from its cuteness." Everything about Claudine was soft and elegant. Her voice, her hair, her clothes, even the way she stood was soft and loose. Nora, however, did not appear soft. She looked as if she had crawled out of a shed in dirty jeans and an oversized black coat and rather large black rubber boots. Her hands and feet seemed too big for the rest of her. Nora did not say "aw" when she saw Winslow. She said "ich." She looked around the basement at the stone walls and concrete floor, at the buckets and hoses and rakes stacked in one corner, at the narrow cot, at Winslow's pile of hay, and then at Winslow. "What you got that thing in here for? You sure it's a donkey? Doesn't look like a donkey. Looks like a possum goat." "A possum goat? What's that?" Louis asked. "A thing that looks like a possum married a goat and had a baby that came out like that." "Aw, don't mind Nora," Claudine said in her soft, soft voice. "That's just the way she talks." "Don't mind Claudine," Nora added. "That's just the way she talks." Mack lifted Winslow from Louis's arms and studied him. "Gaining a little weight since I first saw him, isn't he? Still pretty spindly. Eyes are better, though. Brighter. Maybe he's going to make it." "Of course he's going to make it," Louis said, even though he was not sure from one day to the next. He felt it'd be betraying Winslow, though, if he did not believe Winslow would make it. "Little thing like that," Nora said, "doesn't seem half alive to me." "He still knew," Louis said. He didn't know why he said that. It sounded dumb to him the minute it came out of his mouth. "Some newborns struggle to get going." "Oh, I know all about that," Nora said. "You do?" "Sure. Our brother—" Claudine interrupted her. "Oh, shush, Nora. Your jabbering is bothering this poor little donkey. He's quivering." "I am not jabbering, and I am not bothering that poor possum goat." Nora looked Louis in the eye. "Our brother was born 2 months early." "So was I," Louis said. "I was a pitiful, scrawny, struggling thing." Nora touched Louis's arm with one finger. "But you made it." "Oh." It was surprising, Louis thought, how much one simple sentence could affect your opinion of someone. "Do you want to hold Winslow?" he asked Nora. "Nope. What's the point?" Claudine nudged her sister. "Cut it out, Nora. Don't be mean." "I'm not being mean. I don't see the point of holding that thing if it's going to die anyway." So Nora, she's not very positive, is she? She seems to think, what's the point of getting to know him? So that's probably why she doesn't want to get close to Winslow. She thinks he's going to die. What do you think? You think he's going to make it? Do you think that Louis will keep at it? Or do you think it's out of his hands? I sure hope he makes it. And I want to know what you think of the story so far. I would love to hear from you. My email address is always on one of these slides. And I hope you're doing just great. And I miss seeing you. And I would love to get an email from you telling me what you're reading these days or what you think of Winslow so far. All right. Take care, everyone, and be good. And I will see you all soon. Bye, Greyhounds.